Chapter 71 Emperor Wraith, Advisor Gabriel. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In Andromeda Galaxy, Emperor Wraith Palace above the giant golden throne, a man glowing with pale skin was sitting. He had a slender body, wearing a golden gown and a golden crown. Behind him, there were 16 pairs of wings. He was the Emperor Wraith. Did you retrieve him? He looked at another man standing in front of him and asked. This man also had wings but only 4 pairs. Yes, Your Majesty. Young Prince is now safe and sound. But Your Majesty, this is the 3rd time in 1 month. If we let someone kidnap our young prince anymore, your reputation might fall and his life might get threatened. The man was holding a tablet in his hand as he spoke. Then, what should we do? My son has been targeted constantly. If we don't find a way, I would have no choice but to destroy those solar systems. Emperor's Wraith eyes blazed with anger as he spoke. As your personal advisor, I do have some advice, Your Majesty. I have been sending the instant transmissions far outside our galaxy. And, just a day ago, one satellite from the spiral galaxy next to us has picked it up. Though when I scanned the transmission, I found that this planet was only half awakened. I have sent my information gathering bot to that planet. It should be there in a few minutes. The middle-aged answered while looking at his tablet. What are you trying to suggest, Gabriel? Wraith asked with a solemn voice. Your Majesty, my suggestion is actually simple. Since that planet was able to pick up my instant transmission, we can communicate with the people of this planet. And, with my bot, I will be able to find out every single detail about them in just a matter of minutes. So, my suggestion is actually simple. How about we send our little prince to that planet if the situation is suitable? The people who are currently targeting our young prince are the people from our own subsidiary planets. If we kill them, it will only cause rebellion. So, we can only wait till Archangel Michael successfully evolves our genes 100% so that we can awaken our bloodline for the 6th time, especially Your Majesty. 0. Hearing his advisor, Emperor Wraith nodded his head and asked, so, how is Michael doing? What about other representatives from our subsidiaries' planets? How are they doing in Chaos Online? Advisor Gabriel brightened his smile and said, the representatives of those planets aren't completing that many quests to earn enough Chaos points. But, Michael has recently conquered the floor 50 and earned enough Chaos points to evolve our genes to 76%. It won't be long before that percentage hits 100 and we will get the blessing of the Universal Core to evolve once again. Beep. 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 Your Majesty, my bot has reached this blue planet. Currently, it is scanning the power levels of the people living on this planet. Oh. Results are out, Your Majesty. Advisor Gabriel tapped on the screen and a hologram appeared above the screen. It showed the picture of a lady with silver hair and red eyes alongside a lot of information about her. Your Majesty, this lady is the only person closest to reaching the Omega level. And she has also successfully awakened her bloodline twice. With another click, 10 different pictures appeared in the hologram as he continued, and, these are the 10 humans who have awakened their bloodline once. Your Majesty, let me check the history of this planet. Beep. 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 Interesting. What's so interesting to make you smile like that? Emperor Wraith looked at his advisor's smile with confusion and asked, oh. Your Majesty, my bot is unable to hack all the satellites of this planet. To be specific, it couldn't hack one specific satellite, the same satellite that received our transmission. Your Majesty, I have got the history of this planet. This blue planet known as Earth was a normal planet that was kept outside the influence of Chaos Online. But 30 years ago, this little planet was visited by the vampires. Oh, the vampires started terrorizing this planet and soon, the Universal Spirit put this planet into forceful awakening, hence it was only half awakened, giving powers to humans that are just 1 level below Omega. Soon, the werewolf race also found this planet, but unlike vampires, they started with cooperation, thus engaging in war against the vampires. There are still wars going on in many sectors of this planet, but it is now relatively safe. Beep. 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 Suddenly, the hologram changed and a picture of another silver hair and red eyes girl appeared, but she was a lot younger than the previous one. Interesting. Your Majesty, this little girl is the only creature on that planet who has awakened her bloodline 3 times, but she is currently 8 years old. Her mother is the same vampire who has awakened the bloodline twice, but her father. Your Majesty, would you mind waiting for a minute? I think I have found the person who made that satellite. Saying so, he extracted the virtual keyboard and started typing on it. He was trying some strange codes and transmitting them to his bot. Interesting. Really interesting. The defense mechanism actually forced me to use the fourth dimensional codes. It means this person has also learned the fourth dimension codes. Now, this is the tech I got from those technopaths. I don't believe it can't hack your system. Seeing that crazy smile on his advisor, Emperor Wraith understood that he has gone crazy for competition. But, he calmly waited. This information was concerning for his child. He has already controlled his rage to an absolute minimum. If his son is kidnapped once more, he was afraid that he will destroy these subsidiaries' planets. Fortunately, those kidnappers seem to know the consequences, so not even his hair was harmed. Your Majesty, I hacked in. I finally hacked in. Gabriel excitedly shouted, and a new hologram appeared above his tablet. It was the picture of Brian. Your Majesty, this is the person whose knowledge has tapped into the fourth dimension, but unlike us, he seems to have done it on his own. Not only that, but he is also the father of that little girl. In a normal situation, that girl's bloodline should have regressed, but look at the information I found. Name: Brian Jackson. Age: 25. Genes: awakened. Unable to find bloodline, awakened. Unable to find strength. D. When the Emperor saw that, his eyes narrowed. Why couldn't you find his genes and bloodline? It has already been awakened. Advisor Gabriel shook his head and said, Your Majesty, even with my technology, I couldn't find out his genes and bloodline. But, since he was able to improve the bloodline of his daughter, I dare to say that it is not low. I only have 2 explanations for this. First, he used the fourth dimensional technology to hide his genes and bloodlines. Second, his bloodline has awakened to the point where our technology can't detect. I would like to go with the first explanation considering his high level of intelligence. But, I can't rule out the second possibility. His daughter awakened her bloodline 3 times from birth. But, it seems impossible. Emperor Wraith shook his head and said, It's not impossible for the second possibility to exist. But, the problem is we haven't found his history, have we? Gabriel shook his head and said, But, I have something else that's interesting. I found the trace of the invincible race on that planet. It seems that person is a hybrid and only awakened his bloodline recently. At this moment, Emperor's face turned solemn as he spoke. It seems like this planet is truly not ordinary. So, we will proceed as you have suggested, advisor. My son is only 8 years old. That little girl seems to be the same. From her record, she is currently attending an academy. My son should go there as well. Tell him to come here and prepare everything else. Next day, it was a bright morning, but inside a room of a mansion, a man was rushing to finish his morning routine. He wore a new pair of clothes and dashed to the kitchen. Brian, food is ready. Charlotte, I don't have time to eat. I am going somewhere. Brian hurriedly kissed her cheek and rushed out of the mansion. Nolan, who was sitting on the couch, stared at Brian with confusion. Outside the mansion, there was a small-sized jet plane waiting for him. Under the plane, there was a big metallic ground. Brian entered the plane while commanding Lily to fly it. Lily, Take me to the coordinates sent to us. Whoosh! The jet plane shot out the thrusters towards the ground and flew up. The thrusters on the back also shot out and the plane moved in a certain direction. At this moment, Charlotte had rushed outside the mansion as well. But, she could only see the metallic ground slowly going inside the earth and the ground closing once again. She looked at the sky with a trace of worry in her eyes. It felt like Brian was running for his life. Chapter 72 Young Prince, Wraith D. Jr. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Damn! Why did the Omega-level people find us all of a sudden? Brian clenched his fist while reading the entire text sent from the Andromeda Galaxy. Sir, yesterday, I received a strange fluctuation in the defensive system of UMA. I wasn't sure if someone hacked in. Would you like to check the system performance? Lily asked. No. First, scan the main satellite. Then use it to scan the whole Earth. Finally, show me the UMA firewall system performance. Brian shook his head and continued reading the information he got. Finally, when things were getting cooled down, something just happened. Not to mention, he hasn't still solved the situation of his daughter who came from the future. After reading the entire text, Brian rubbed his chin and thought, why would the Emperor of 3 Galaxies send his only son to the half-awakened planet and threaten to take care of him? No, I need to find out what's going on. I can't let anything go wrong. But, first, let's wait for Lily's report. After a minute, Lily finally showed a holographic projection of a small golden spider-like bot hovering in the lower atmosphere. Sir, I detected a high-level scanning function attached to that bot. It seemed to be scanning our planet. And, I also received some transmission in our main satellite. But, these transmissions were only viruses that were used to pinpoint our location and the Earth's condition. Hearing her words, Brian thought for a moment and muttered. Whoever that might be, he used the fourth-dimensional codes to hack into the firewall system and checked out details. Only after that, Emperor Wraith decided to send his son here. That's the only logical explanation I can come up with. But, it also means he didn't send his son here for learning. Something must be going wrong with them forcing them to send the Prince of the 3 Galaxies to this place. Sir, your analysis is correct. The firewall was indeed hacked, but it was hacked precisely in a way that it won't send us any notifications. Lily spoke with a solemn tone. Damn. If something happens to that boy, our solar system would be destroyed. Why did he drop off his son so far away? Lily, how long will it take to reach there? Brian clenched his fist and slammed it on the table. 0. He was frustrated. He just woke up. He was low on his stamina. And now, he has to go through all this. Sir, we will be late by 5 minutes, Lily replied. Damn it. I hope that boy won't do anything. If only this plane could go any faster. Brian gritted his teeth but quickly tried to relax. Bang. Whoosh. Bam. But, suddenly, the thrusters released an enormous power and the plane's speed simply doubled up. Brian flew back and collided against the wall. Lily, what happened? Sir, the plane is currently using 200% of its power on its thrusters. I believe it somehow listened to you and acted on its own. Wait. Sir, your powers have improved. At first, her expression was simple, but when she realized this situation, her voice got so loud that it shook the plane for a moment. My power improved. But, I didn't feel, wait, why did this ability of mine improve? According to my estimation, it should have improved after I reached LVL.30. And, I can now make the technology do my bidding. Brian's eyes widened when he looked at his hands and analyzed his own ability. Sir, congratulations. Your ability has improved. Lily rushed in front of him in her virtual form and jumped to cheer him up. Yeah, but we still got a problem to solve first. Damn. So many things are happening too fast that I can't even keep track of everything. Brian was still angry despite his ability being improved. Oh. The thing that he hates the most is if things don't go as he plans. Thinking of he couldn't help but remember the first day he met Ely. From that moment on, everything in his life took so many turns that he doesn't even know whether to blame Ely for this or not. Sir, we reached our destination. We are 1 minute early. The plane slowly landed in a desert and Brian walked out. He looked around and except for the sands, he couldn't find anything. That guy literally scanned the whole planet. Why couldn't drop his son at my place? Sir, calm down. Your anger level is soaring after this morning. Lily worriedly spoke but her words only made him angrier. Calm down. How can I calm down after that bastard threatened to destroy my solar system? Damn it. I feel like dropping thousands of anti-matter bomb on his planet. Sir, calm down. You are letting your anger control you like before. You promised your parents to never use technology for harming others. Lily spoke with a solemn voice and the next moment a white light appeared in front of them. Brian took a deep breath and calmed down. Yes, he promised his parents to not use the technologies to hurt others. He can't break his promise, not until a situation like Ely's happens again. The white light made a pillar and slowly, the pillar disappeared and a kid walked out. This kid had a pair of white wings behind him. He looked incredibly handsome with his blue eyes and white hair. He had slender arms and was wearing a golden gown. Cute. When Brian saw this kid, he could only say one word. Cute. He felt like even Ely's cuteness pales in comparison to his. Even Lily was virtually drooling over his cuteness. Are you the one father spoke about? But when he spoke, he sounded a lot arrogant. There was a trace of disdain in his tone. Yes. My name is Brian Jackson. From now on, you will live with me. Brian didn't mind his tone. He was the son of an emperor. How could he not be arrogant? The young prince nodded his head and stayed silent. Shouldn't you introduce yourself? Brian frowned and asked. The young prince looked at him and asked, didn't my father already tell my name? Brian didn't speak. He turned around and said, follow me. Oh, the young prince frowned at Brian's attitude and spoke, hey, I am the son of the Emperor of 3 galaxies. Why aren't you kneeling in front of me? Whoosh. Suddenly, Brian turned around and pointed a gun at his forehead. Listen, kid, I am already in a bad mood. If you dare to show that arrogance in front of me, I will sell your information to your worst enemies and deliver you to them, or I will shoot you down with the dark matter bullet that will copy your entire body and create a clone that will completely follow my instruction. Understand? When he said that, the young prince's eyes widened and the next moment, he bursts into tears. Waya. You are bullying me. Waya. Brian couldn't help but tilt his head with confusion. Fuck. He is the son of an emperor. He is no different than other kids. Wait, he is a kid. At this moment, I regretted threatening this kid. I quickly put away my gun and rubbed his hair. I am just joking with you. Don't cry. If you cry, the monsters from this desert will come at you. The young prince stopped crying and looked at him, but the next moment, he continued crying once again. Brian finally couldn't bear it and lifted him in his arms and walked towards the plane. If you stop crying, I will take you to the academy where you can meet a lot of friends. Finally, the young prince stopped crying and asked, really? Brian was a little startled by this. He nodded his head and said, but, you can't act with your arrogance in the academy, or else you would be punished. Are those friends all humans? The young prince wiped away his tears and asked. Brian shook his head and said, some of them are vampires, some are werewolves and some are humans. You will be the first angel to join this academy. Are you hungry now? The young prince nodded his head, and this time, he seemed more polite than before. My girlfriend makes delicious food. After eating, I will drop you at the academy. All right. The young prince nodded his head and hesitated before asking, you won't sell me to bad guys, right? Brian was surprised for a moment and immediately understood the situation. He smiled and rubbed his head. Of course not, I only said to make you more polite. Remember, this is not your planet. No one knows you. So, they might harm you if you keep acting like a prince. On Earth, you are not a prince anymore. You are just Wraith D. Jr. The young prince nodded his head and tightened his grip around Brian's neck. Please don't sell me to bad guys. Chapter 73. Returning to the mansion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After 10 minutes, they finally reached the mansion. His plane landed on that exact spot, and after they got out, it went inside the land. Oh, seeing this, the young prince looked at Brian and asked, my father's advisor said someday he would like to talk to you about science. Brian was initially stunned as he asked, is he the one who sent the transmission to my satellite and also sent the bot here? The young prince nodded his head and said, yes, his name is Gabriel. He is my father's most trusted subordinate and also his advisor. He is the only person in our empire who can use the fourth-dimensional codes to create the technologies that surpass our normal technologies. Interesting. Now, I also want to meet him. Brian smirked as he thought about this advisor. By the way, I heard you have a daughter who has awakened her bloodline 3 times from birth. Is she strong? Is she S. rank already, or has she reached king rank? The young prince curiously asked with his sparkling eyes. Brian narrowed his eyes. The 9 ranks that humans have divided are all under S. rank. Most of the superior vampires are S. rank. They are very strong, but the king rank creatures are even stronger. The top 10 superheroes are king rank. And, above the king rank is emperor rank. Only one person in this world has reached emperor rank. That person is none other than Lucy Bathory. Above the emperor rank is omega rank. There isn't a single omega rank on their planet, while Emperor Wraith has more than 1 million of omega rank. Brian sighed. This is why he was angry and helpless. The Earth won't stand a chance against them. Barely thousands of people are reaching S. rank after the creation of new gods. Brian shook his head and asked, if a little kid like her could be S. rank, do you think your father would have sent you here? 0. What? But, she has awakened her bloodline 3 times. I have only awakened it twice and I am already an S. rank. Wait, then how strong are you? The young prince looked at him with some doubts in his mind. Brian smiled and rubbed his head. Let's just say that now if I want to survive, your father shouldn't be able to kill me. That is if I leave everything behind. Anyway, since you are here, you shouldn't use your powers a lot, or else, you would really get into some trouble. Brian opened the door and walked in with the young prince, who was still confused about what Brian just said to him. Lily, I don't understand something. I am sure if I utilize the Heavenly Dragon Guard, nobody can kill me. But, then why did I die in the future? In his mind, Lily answered, maybe you didn't use the Heavenly Dragon Guard. After all, sir, you know the consequences of using the Heavenly Dragon Guard, and if the person who killed is someone you don't want to kill, then why would you use the Heavenly Dragon Guard? You are right. I need to find out the answers. More importantly, I can't just rely on Heavenly Dragon Guard. Using it means leaving everything, my past, present, and future behind, just to keep myself alive. I can't do that. Now, I want to live with my daughter and Charlotte. I must create something else that can protect my family. Suddenly, Lily spoke, but sir, you promised your parents that you wouldn't use the technology to harm others. Are you going to break your promise? Lily, I will keep my promise, but what if something happens to Ely or Charlotte? Do you think the promise matters more than them? My parents forced me to make such a promise, which is why they died. Oh. I am not going to repeat this mistake. I will do everything I can to keep my family safe. I am not going to leave Ely helpless and alone. I am not going to hold back anymore. As you wish, sir. Then, I will help you to the best of my abilities. Brian smiled as he finally calmed down. The anger that was slowly consuming him vanished like it was never there. Suddenly, he noticed a change. The hatred that he had in his heart for so long has completely vanished. He thought for a moment and tried to remember the day his parents were killed by the vampire. But the next second, an image of Ely appeared in his mind. Another image of Charlotte came to his mind. And another image where three of them came to his mind. At this moment, he couldn't even get angry. He took a deep breath and suddenly noticed a palm swinging in front of him. Brian, are you there? Why are you lost in your own thoughts? His eyes caught the light and finally, he saw Charlotte in front of him. I am sorry. I got lost in some thoughts. Brian replied with a smile. Seeing that smile, Charlotte sighed a breath of relief. You are finally all right. I worried sick. Normally, Brian always smiles when he responds, but today, she didn't see him smiling while he was leaving the mansion. She was worried if something bad happened. By the way, who is this cute little boy? Charlotte's eyes twinkled when she looked at the boy once again. Seeing the wings behind, she knew he wasn't a human or a vampire or a werewolf. She has never seen such a cute boy in her life. Her hands were trembling. She wanted to pinch his cheeks, but she didn't know anything about him. So, she held back. Nolan was also watching him with amazement. He didn't expect the first day he came to Brian's mansion, that he will see a cute boy with wings. His name is Wraith D. Jr. As you can see, he has wings and comes from an angel race. His parents are busy with some galactic situation, so they drove him here. He will be staying with and going to the same academy as Ely. Hearing his words, Charlotte thought for a moment and suddenly her eyes narrowed. She leaned closer to Brian and asked, You aren't trying to fix Ely with him, right? She is way too young. Brian rolled his eyes after hearing that. Why would he do something like that? But suddenly, a thought came to his mind. The next moment, he leaned next to the young prince with cold eyes and said. Boy, just because you are living with us doesn't mean you can hit on my daughter. If you dare to make any move, I will teleport you to the middle of the sun. Hearing his words, the young prince's eyes changed once again and he started crying. Why? Wraith, don't cry. He is just joking with you. He won't do anything to you while I am here. Charlotte pulled the little boy to her embrace and patted his head. She looked at Brian and glared. Although he was overprotective, this was way too much for a little kid. Seeing that gaze, Brian swiftly turned his head at Nolan. Sorry that I made you wait. No, it's okay. Should I come tomorrow? Nolan shook his head and asked. Brian thought for a moment and said, How about we have some breakfast first? I was originally going to teach you the dark matter interaction with nanochips and explosives, but I am going to be busy. Saying so, he walked to his room and returned with a pen drive. I have stored all the information in this pen drive. Read it and try to understand it properly. After that, make a proper experiment and send it to me. If your experiment is good, I will give you a call and you can work in my lab. Hearing his words, Nolan's eyes widened. Really? I can work with you? Of course. But first, breakfast. Saying so, he turned around and looked at Charlotte. She was busy pinching his cheeks. The white cheeks had turned red. Ahem. Charlotte, can we have some breakfast? I need to drop Wraith to the academy. Brian asked. Oh, all right. Charlotte reluctantly left his cheek and walked inside the kitchen. The young prince ran to Brian and pulled his pants. I am sorry for crying. I will not cry again. So, can you keep me away from her? At first, she seemed very harmless. But, after she started pinching his cheek, he couldn't say the same. She was even more vicious than Brian in his eyes. He couldn't understand why his father sent him here. He isn't even allowed to use his strength unless absolutely necessary. Brian smiled and patted his head. You need to adjust to the surroundings. By the way, can you take back your wings? They will catch a lot of eyes. The young prince nodded his head. Normally, we can't take back our wings since they not only represent our identity but also strength. But, father knew I would need to hide my wings, so he gave me this. Saying so, he took out a small chip from his bracelet and attached that chip to his back. In an instant, the wings behind him slowly returned back. It was quite strange. Because these wings were made out of bones and white feathers. But while taking them back, it felt like the bones melt into the muscles and the feathers melted into the skin. Interesting. I wonder if I will get any success on my experiments after I research his blood. Chapter 74 Classroom Drama. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After breakfast, Brian took Nolan and Wraith Jr. in his car. Nolan lived in Zone B as well, so he dropped him near the exit point of Zone B and took Wraith Jr. to the academy. While on the way, he also asked for the UMA's director's authority to help Wraith get into this academy. The rules of this academy are really strict. So, he just told them this was an Omega-level threat. And, with Brian's reputation, there was no hesitation from the director. After talking with the headmistress and using the director's authority, he was able to send Wraith Jr. to his class. After that, he returned home with a tired face. He was already low on stamina and now doing all this had made him even more tired. In Whitelock Academy, Creek. Headmistress opened the door of a class and walked in. Headmistress. The teacher greeted Sir with a surprise on her eyes. The teacher was a middle-aged lady wearing a gray skirt and a white shirt. Teacher Nisa, I have brought a new transfer student to your class. Please introduce him and start the class. He will take all of the extra lessons that student Eleanor is taking as well. The headmistress handed Wraith Jr. to the teacher and left. The class have just begun, so Wraith didn't miss many classes, but it was still humiliating that she had to break the rules of the academy. This academy had one main rule. It says, no rules shall be broken. Now, she was the one who broke the rule, 0. After the headmistress left, Nisa looked at Wraith Jr. with a surprise on her. She also understood that the headmistress broke the rule, which means this boy isn't an ordinary boy. At this moment, a lot of eyes were on him, including a pair of red eyes. When those red eyes noticed him, she felt a strange unpleasant feelings in her blood. That feeling was mutual. Wraith also felt the same way. He felt disgusting feelings from his blood, as if his blood was telling him to stay away from her. Now, Wraith, would you mind introducing yourself? Nisa purposefully smiled and asked. Wraith, originally wanting to ignore her, remembered the lessons Brian gave him in the car and nodded his head. My name is Wraith D. Jr. I am currently living with my parents' friend since my parents are out for some work. I am not familiar with your custom and behavior, so forgive me if I make any mistake. These were the perfectly taught lines. Brian insisted on him saying this line almost 50 times while they were in the car. Wow. Wraith, are you human? Because you look too good to be a human. Wraith, do you mind sitting next to me? Wraith, I have done all of the homework. I can share them with you. Instantly, all the little girls from the classes crowded Wraith. He was too cute from the beginning, and when he tried to act innocent, he looked even better. Oh. Students, return to your seats. And, Wraith, you please seat next to student Eleanor. Even Nisa was charmed by his cuteness. She couldn't control herself, and if there were no students, somebody would be forced to call the FBI. No. Teacher, there are so many seats empty. Why does he have to seat next to me? Ely stood up in a flash and rebuked with an angry face. Hearing her words, Nisa instantly returned to her calm self and spoke, Student Eleanor, you are currently a new student who has only joined for 2 days. Student Wraith is also new. And, just like you, he will be taking extra classes as well. So, it would be better if you seat together and become friends. Friends with him. Eleanor showed an ugly face when she heard that. She was already annoyed that Wraith was able to get so much attention from her classmates while she only got one, but even that turned out to be bad. Miss, how about you let him sit next to me? Anyway, that would force those annoying red eyes to look away. Suddenly, a young boy sitting a few seats away from Ely spoke. He was a human kid with a pale face. His eyes and hair were black. He was a handsome little boy. But when he said that, Wraith walked closer to him and suddenly grabbed his shirt. Hey, those red eyes aren't annoying. When he said that, Wraith released intense pressure from his blue eyes. He couldn't help but look at those red eyes. Though, they are disgusting. Student Wraith, you can't use violence in class. Teacher Nisa spoke coldly, but she couldn't get angry. When Wraith turned around, her cold face instantly melted away when she looked at those crystal blue eyes. Not just her, every other girl in the class fell into an illusion for a moment. Teacher, I would sit at the place you chose. Wraith took a deep breath and walked to his seat. He had no bag or books. The uniform was also something the headmistress gave him. When Wraith reached next to Ely, he noticed her trying to avoid the gaze and sighed. He knew she was a vampire, and that's why he was feeling disgusted by her presence. If he represented light, she represented darkness. But, he couldn't forget Brian's words. My daughter might be a handful, but be nice to her. Her happiness means everything to me. These words wouldn't have meant anything to him if it wasn't his own dad who said such things. Son, no matter what happened, if you get into any trouble, call me. Your father will always be there for you. Since you are going to a new planet where you aren't a prince, just be a kid and enjoy your life. Your happiness means everything to me. He was a prince, the future ruler of 3 galaxies, the heir to the throne. From a small age, he was always under pressure to be the best. But, his father always wanted him to enjoy his life. That's why he got captured so much. Be prince and stay with guards, or be a kid and enjoy freedom. He chose the latter, but the place and time were wrong. So, he understands his father's words. Now, he is on a new planet where the first person he met didn't care about his identity. He was no longer a prince here. He was just Wraith Jr. When he sat next to her, Ely slowly turned her head at him. There was a trace of shyness in her eyes as she spoke. I'm sorry for what I said. Wraith turned his blue eyes at her and whispered, those aren't annoying eyes. They are just disgusting. Saying so, he looked around without even caring a bit. He was already feeling disgusted by his blood just by sitting next to her. He didn't want her to look at him. You. Ely bites her lips when she heard that. She was furious, but she didn't want to get in trouble, so she kept her mouth shut. After Nisa's period was over, the next period started. It continued until the break. Wraith, let's go to the cafeteria tougher. Wraith, I will give you my meatballs. They are delicious. Wraith, you didn't bring any books, you can borrow mine. The girls instantly swarmed him as soon as it was broken. While next to him, nobody talked to Ely. She stood up and walked to the cafeteria. Wraith also noticed this, but he didn't think too much. Oh, he was already having a hard time sitting next to her because of his blood. Only after she left, did he feel relaxed. In the cafeteria, Ely took her food, and just while she was choosing her place to sit, she heard a voice from behind. Hey, annoying eyes. When she heard those words, she clenched her fists, but she calmed down and turned at him. The student's name was Adam. That blue eyes boy didn't come with you. I thought he was your lapdog. Adam smirked as he asked. There was anger hidden in his tone. Ely looked at him and snorted, do you want to get punched again? She even clenched her fist while holding the tray with her one fist. You. Aren't you afraid of getting into trouble? When Adam remembered her punch, he instantly trembled and looked away. Humph. If you have nothing to say, then don't call me. Ely snorted and walked to the table in front of his. She sat while facing him. A few seconds later, Adam walked next to her and sat. Ely didn't understand, so he explained. I can't bear to see those annoying eyes. So, don't look at me. Only then she realized she was facing him directly. But, this only made her angrier. Her eyes weren't annoying or disgusting. They are beautiful. She didn't understand why they are teasing her so much. Suddenly, a soft hand touched Adam's shoulder. He turned around and saw Wraith holding his plate. This is my seat. Go sit somewhere else. Chapter 75 Unexpected Confession. You're listening at novelfull.audio. Sorry to disappoint you, Mr. Ocean Eyes. But, you can only sit next to her in class. Adam turned around and smirked at him with disdain in his eyes. Wraith narrowed his eyes, but before he could speak, Adam continued. Besides, your fans are waiting for you. Look. They can't bear to see you here. At this moment, Ely turned around and asked, don't you find my eyes disgusting? Why do you want to sit next to me? Disgusting. Come on, there has to be a limit to how much you can say. Adam rolled his eyes at Wraith and spoke with disdain. Wraith opened his mouth, but he couldn't refuse. Suddenly, a plate landed on the table and someone caught both of them by their collars. If you think her eyes are annoying and disgusting, then go and see your own eyes in the mirror. When Ely heard this voice, her eyes widened. She turned around and her mouth opened wide. Lily pulled them away from the table and sat next to Ely. She smiled and asked. Why didn't you tell me that you have already joined the academy? 0. I didn't get a chance yesterday. Ely bites her lips and lowered her head. Lily giggled and patted her head. I know. You punched him in the face yesterday. Saying so, she stopped smiling and looked at Adam. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You are the son of Gabriel, the first superhero of mankind, and you are wasting your time bullying someone, and a girl on top of that. Adam lowered his head with shame and Lily turned her head at Wraith. And you, just because you are cute and a boy, don't think that you can get away with this. If you call her eyes disgusting once again, I will tie you with ropes and spank you. At this moment, Lily's face turned red with weird imagination coming on her head. Lily, what happened? Your face is all red. Ely looked at her with confusion and asked. Isn't that the same face that she makes him when her father does something to her? Her eyes widened. She immediately caught Lily's shoulder and said, Lily, you can't like this guy. He is a jerk, a total jerk. Oh. Hey, I am right here. Wraith felt annoyed when she called him a jerk. What are talking about? I am just feeling hot. That's all. Lily felt ashamed of her thoughts and immediately calmed down. She was even more annoyed when Ely said she liked him. Well, he was handsome but nothing more than that. She didn't even know him properly. Well, what are you doing here? If you can't watch her eyes, go away. Lily looked at them and tried to chase them away, but to her surprise, both of them walked in front of them and sat. My legs are tired. I need to eat something before I walk. Adam lazily sighed and started eating his food. As for Wraith, he didn't say anything. He just lowered his head and continued eating. Ely and Lily dumbfoundedly stared at them and silently eat their food. On other hand, the break was over before they could finish it. It seemed like they wasted too much time arguing than eating food. So, they hurriedly ended the food and then rushed back to the class. But unfortunately, they were late. The cafeteria had a strict rule that you need to wash the dishes before you leave. So, they spent so much time eating the last bites and washing the dishes, they didn't reach class before the teacher entered. And, they were punished to stand outside the class for the entire class. It was quite a hard punishment for the students who were only 2 minutes late. But, considering how seriously they take the rules, it wasn't much of a surprise. And now, Ely had to stand between them outside for 40 minutes. And, it got even more boring for her when they didn't even speak a word. At this moment, she even wished they would have teased her for her eyes. Unfortunately, none of that happened. In the mansion, "Good afternoon, how was your sleep?" Charlotte turned her head at Brian, who had just come out of the bedroom while yawning, and asked. After understanding his situation, she didn't find it difficult to adjust. It was good. I restored some strength to do something tasks. Brian nodded his head and went near the sink and washed his face. Oh, ahem. So, are you going to fill me up on about the boy? Charlotte asked. She was really curious about this whole situation. It happened so fast that she didn't know how to react. Brian wiped away the water with a towel and sat on a sofa, next to her. He rested his neck and looking at the ceiling, he spoke. It's nothing. We just got caught in the middle of two big forces. We can't fight them, so we have no choice but to stay quiet. No. That's not what I mean. I want to more about this world. You seem to know a lot and we haven't got time to talk much. Now, we have a little time. You are not going to do anything. So, tell me more about this world. Charlotte spoke. She moved next to him and wrapped her arms around him, acting a bit spoiled. Brian sighed and rubbed her head as he spoke. All right then, let's start with the beginning. I also have a lot of things that I wanted to share with you. Now seems like a perfect time. Anyway, around 13 years ago, when I was 12, I wrote a theory. I told you before that I can talk to the technologies, right? Well, when I was 12, I discovered a small chip that was actually a quantum computer. I still don't know how it ended up there, but now, I feel like it is related to my parents. Anyway, after I got that chip, I learned more about quantum physics and quantum world. I found a way to create a device that can navigate us inside the quantum world. From there, I learned that time travel is actually possible. So, I started working on a new project. But, the problem was funding. I had no intention to let my parents know about this, even though they eventually find out. So, I had to find a way to fund my projects. During this time, I found a black market. It wasn't the black market on Earth, but rather a black market of the universe. I studied how it works and started finding materials that could help me achieve time travel. As for how this works, it's quite simple. You create virtual assistants of yourself that can enter a platform of a virtual reality created at the center of our galaxy. Only the planets with the technology strong enough can enter this platform. So, when I was dealing with the black market, I managed to learn a lot about this universe. But, of course, the main thing that I learned was Chaos Online. My New Gods is actually based on Chaos Online. And, the reason I left everything just to focus on getting stronger was also to enter this game. But, only one person from a planet can enter this game. That person will also determine the fate of that planet. In fact, the amount of zero-point energy and the bloodline of humans or other races in our planets can be improved by entering this game and leveling up. Of course, at that time, I was only focused on time travel. So, I ignored everything else and focused on creating the time travel suit. I got the funding after I sold my unique algorithm and technology on the black market. And, I completed my time travel suit. But, when I created that, I got discovered by a special core that keeps the timelines in check. I thought they would imprison me or even kill me, but strangely enough, they only warned me not to use the time travel and let me go. After that, I stopped the project, ripped up the final pages of my theory, and decided to keep it as an incomplete theory. I thought nobody would find out, but my parents did. They somehow find out what I did and forced me to make a promise that I will never create or use the technology that would hurt others. That's why even though I was in a rage after my parents died, I only created the bomb that will alter their genes. I still wanted to keep my promise, but it seems like I can't keep it for long. My ability to communicate with technologies has improved. Now, I want to find out something. I want to find out how I am. Why do I have these powers? Why I am so ahead of the rest of the humans on the earth? Saying so, Brian looked at her and said, "It's going to be an exhausting journey." Hearing his words, Charlotte shook her head and put it on his shoulder. "I don't mind going through anything with you." At this moment, Brian suddenly got down from the sofa and got on one knee. He put his hand in his pocket and took out something. He raised his head and looked into her eyes. "Charlotte, my life won't be anything ordinary. I might not get time for you and Ely, but I promise, I will do everything to be a good father and a good husband. So, will you marry me?" At this moment, he was holding a silver ring between his finger. When Charlotte saw that, her eyes widened and the tears fell down her cheeks. She couldn't smile or cry. She was stuck. But, her body instantly moved as she embraced and said, "I will. I will marry you and become your bride." Chapter 76. Moving forward. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. Please understand this is just fiction. So, the science explained in these chapters is incomplete and probably just nonsense. Charlotte, you know that nobody is going to steal that ring from your hands. Seeing her staring at the ring for almost half an hour while making a sly face tired him even more. Brian helplessly sighed. Charlotte turned around and giggled like a love-struck fool. "I am engaged to you now. I am finally engaged. Oh, I know. I know. I am the guy who proposed to you. Calm down." Brian helplessly patted her shoulders to calm her down, but his efforts didn't mean much. "How can I calm down? You know I have been waiting for this moment my whole life after I fell in love with you. I was dreaming to be your bride the entire time. And, now that dream has finally come true. And, you proposed to me for marriage out of nowhere. There is no way I can calm down." Charlotte was telling the truth. She really didn't expect him to propose. At least, not this soon. For her, it might be soon, but for Brian, it felt like an eternity. The huge pressure that he had after his parents died finally went down. For 3 years, he ignored her, tried to run away, and tried everything so that he won't do anything stupid like creating another celestial killing bomb. But after that, he slowly began to take his relationship back to normal, 0. It's just that he could never feel brave enough to take it a step forward. He understood one thing. He was a coward when it comes to feelings. Bedodem he hid. He ran. He suppressed every emotion in his heart. He tried to be a loner. He tried to kick out everyone from his heart. But, he never tried to take a step forward. He never tried to look after the people who really cared about him. He never tried to return the favor. After his future daughter incident and Emperor's Wraith incident, he panicked. He felt rage and anger in his heart. And, he felt like he would need to go back to his previous self to become what he has left behind. But this time, he didn't just have Charlotte. He had a daughter. A little vampire who needed his guidance and his love to grow. And, if he ran away right now, if he hid right now, who would be there for her? Then, he realized it wasn't just her. Previously, Charlotte was there just as a friend. But not anymore. She was there as a part of his family, as his girlfriend, and as his future wife. He realized that he might not have a future, so why not hurry, why not do it now, why not do it right after you got the perfect moment? This time, he didn't want to run away. He had things that he can't run away from. He had the responsibility that needed him. He had people to hold tight and never let him do anything stupid. Oh. This time, he had no one to hate. Brian understood this very well. His mood wasn't complicated anymore. He wrapped his arms around Charlotte and kissed her lips. This time she just closed her eyes and let him continue. After a minute, he broke the kiss and said, "Unfortunately, I might not have enough stamina to continue on the bed." Hearing this, Charlotte blushed and lowered her head. He touched her hand and held them tightly. "Charlotte, I know this is not something I should ask for after proposing to you. But, I got no other choice. Ely's smile means everything to me. She is the reason why we are together. My parents always supported me, always had my back, always loved me, and now, I am understanding why. When you are a father, your family means more than anything to you. And, I don't want my family to break apart. So, I will leave the decision to you. Ely will be here even if she isn't. Ely is my daughter and I will keep her with me. This time, I won't run or hide. So, this time, you decide whether she stays or leaves." When Brian said that, Charlotte shook her head and asked, "Aren't you still trying to hide? Isn't this the same as running away?" "No, just when Brian tried to find an explanation, Charlotte covered his mouth and said, "Let's do this together. Before you didn't have me to be your backbone, but now, here I am, wearing the ring. I will always support you. So, don't run away this time. Ely is not just your daughter now. She is my daughter as well. I might not be her real mother. But, I will love her like I would love my own child." Hearing her words, Brian deeply sighed and nodded his head. "All right. Let's do what we can do. There is no need to rush, at least not until she comes." He stood up and said, "Well, I will be going back to my lab." But suddenly, Charlotte caught his hand and asked, "You didn't tell me anything except for your own past. Don't leave now. Tell me more." Brian helplessly sighed and said, "I am taking a break from the game for 7 days so that I can enjoy my time with you and Ely. Today is only the first day. We still have 6 more days left. I will talk about something new each day." Charlotte pouted but still let go of his hand. Then, she went back to looking at her ring and giggling all the time. Brian returned to his lab. "Lily, has she started working on that?" "Yes sir, it will take 1 week for her to complete it and then we would be able to track her location." Lily projected herself in a virtual form and explained. "That's good. Now, I want you to create a new file for a new task. Name it, Heavenly Dragon Lair. File has been generated. Would you like to create a model for this task?" "Yes, draw a complete map of this mansion and everything around it." With his command, a holographic picture of the entire mansion and the ground around it emerged. This not only contained the things outside the mansion but also the things inside the mansion. It also showed the giant lab under the mansion and hundreds of giant pipelines connected to the lab. "Sir, what would you like to add?" Lily asked. Connect all the pipes to the middle of the mansion. Change the current design, and use the backup power source while doing this. This is your first project. Utilize every robotic arm we have to finish this project as soon as possible, then focus on the next task. It is to create 4 laser cannons around the mansion in each direction. By the way, do you still remember the Sun Dragon Cannon design? "Sir, I can't things unless you ask me to." "Good. Then, create these cannons instead of normal cannons." "But sir, we don't have enough energy to charge these cannons." "Don't worry, I am just getting there. Today, I realized something. In fact, I realized many things and this thing is one of those. Although I am way beyond current Earth's technology, I am still a member of this planet. Earth is my motherland, and if I can advance so much in technology, I should also help the Earth advance in terms of technology. We are barely a Type 1 civilization. But, we need to be more than that. Now, I am going to commence a new project. Lily, record this and send it to all directors. I, Brian Jackson, will help the Earth reach Type 2 civilization in less than a decade. And, I want the full support of UMA to do so. After a long pause, Lily responded, Sir, the message has been delivered. Good, now let's start working on this project. We are going to create the Dyson sphere around our sun in less than 5 years. But sir, it wouldn't possible. According to the size of the sun, and the number of materials we have, it would take almost a decade to do so. Brian shook his head and said, We are not going to send humans to work there. It's time to create self-replicating nano.tech. We are going to use the quartz crystals found inside the dungeons in order to power up the quantum panel generation core. Normal energy won't sustain it, but with the help of quartz crystals, we might be able to create the core. That core would be able to generate the panels around the sun that can absorb the solar waves. Of course, we are going to cover the core with the nanochips. We are going to enhance the capabilities of nanochips with zero-point energy to make it much more durable and flexible. By the way, this also means we can improve the power chamber. For now, though, let's just focus on the Dyson sphere and Heavenly Dragon Lair. Chapter 77 Charlotte's Day. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After 2 hours, sir, all the process has been completed. For cannons at each direction, the energy barrier around the mansion, and the main teleportation channel has been established. Mansion 2.0 is ready to face any danger and keep your family safe. After hearing Lily's report, Brian heavily breathed. Because everything has been changing so fast, he didn't know how to cope with it. His plans are failing. He has gotten more responsibility. Oh, and his powers are getting more unrealistic. Things have changed so much that he had to step up and do everything to protect his family. But, he can only keep it inside the mansion. If something happens to them when they are outside, it would be really bad. After resting in his chair for half an hour, he finally walks out of his lab. When he reaches the hall, he saw 2 people arguing against each other. They were none other than Ely and Wraith. And, Charlotte was just sitting there with her hands covering her head. She felt too tired to deal with this. Daddy. Ely immediately spotted him and rushed toward him. She jumped into his embrace and shouted, Daddy, why is that guy living with us? I don't want to live with him. Humph. Who wants to live with you? I can't even bear to stand in front of you. Wraith folded his arms and pouted while looking away. 0. Daddy. Ely's eyes changed as if she was about to cry any moment as she looked at Brian. After hearing their fight, Brian helplessly sighed. He finally understood that it wasn't a real fight. No wonder, Charlotte didn't make any move and let them bicker. It was like the relationship between daughter.in.law and mother.in.law. He patted Ely's head and said, It's all right, Ely. Wraith's parents are in some problems, so he is going to live with us for some time. You can't tell him to leave. No. I don't want to live with him. He called my eyes disgusting. Ely shouted and started rebelling. On other hand, Wraith looked away and said, It's me who said that. It's my bloodline. At this moment, he understood what happened. Ely told him that one of her classmates was calling her eyes annoying, and now there was another guy who called her eyes disgusting. Obviously, she would be furious about this. But, it wasn't Wraith's fault as well. If he was an adult, he would have known what to say. But, being a child, he just did as his bloodline told him. And, angel bloodline despises the vampire bloodline. 2 of them aren't opposites like light and darkness. But, the angel bloodline only hates vampire bloodline because of their blood-related abilities. Oh. Alright, if you 2 keep fighting, then there will be food for 2 of you. And, Ely, you won't get my blood. Wraith will stay here for some times and you have to adjust and be good to him. Brian sighed and finally decided to teach his daughter. Although he could threaten Wraith, he was a parent, not a tyrant. He wanted his daughter to learn how to be a better person. Of course, he loves spoiling her but only when things are correct. At the same time, he looked at Wraith and said, and you can't call her bloodline disgusting. I know it is not you but the grown-up from angel race won't say such a thing if he was in your situation. You are a child, so I don't punish you for that but you need to control your bloodline. He is right, Wraith. You can't let your bloodline dilute your thoughts. Now, let me show you your room. After you change your clothes, we can talk about your first day at the academy. Charlotte walked up to Wraith and patted his head. Wraith felt incredibly shy when she did that. He raised his hand and she took him to his room. That's not fair. You told me you will help me change my clothes. Ely jumped down from his embrace and stopped them. Can you stop being a baby about everything? I know you don't like me because you don't have any friends while I have a lot of them despite you joining one day ahead of me. You are such a whining baby. Wraith clenched his fist when he heard her words and rebuked her. There was a visible trace of anger in his eyes. Hearing his words, Ely suddenly put down her hands and tears fell down her cheeks. Wraith. You can't say such a thing to Ely. Charlotte sharply glared at him and tried to embrace Ely but Ely escaped her embrace and left the mansion. Charlotte tried to catch up with her but Brian stopped her and said, I'll go. At this moment, Charlotte won't make things good. He couldn't help but glance at Wraith. Although what Wraith said was bad, it wasn't necessarily wrong. He sighed and left the mansion. He walked around the mansion and finally came in front of the swing. At this moment, Ely was on the swing while crying. Brian walked next to her swing and sat down. The thing that I most hate in my life is the point when things don't go my way. I always like to plan things and whenever they don't go my way, I get angry and frustrated. After you came into my life, things have never gone the way I planned. In fact, I planned my entire life but nothing is going as I did. Hearing his words, Ely clutched the chains and cried even more. She has no other way to express her feelings except for the crying. But suddenly, Brian's arm stretched to her head and fondled her hair. But, when I am with you, I can't get angry. I always think she is my daughter. What if she does something bad? She is my daughter. Of course, I am going to do this thing for her. She is my daughter, I can't blame her for doing this. Never had I ever thought of getting angry at you. But, I don't want to be a dad who spoils his daughter to the extreme. So, even though I don't want to get angry at you, I do get angry. I get angry whenever you don't listen to Charlotte. I didn't angry because you don't like her. I got angry because I don't want you to spoil too much. I am always ready to do anything extreme for you but only when you are in trouble. I know the feeling of being lonely. I know what it feels like when none of your classmates want to talk to you. I did go through the same thing but do you know what I learned? At this moment, Ely raised her head and looked at him. She was no longer crying. She understood that she shouldn't act like a spoiled brat. Brian smiled and said, I learned that the person who gives you their attention will end up being the only friend you will have in your life. Despite fighting and quarreling, who are the only classmates that truly talk to you? Ely lowered her head and didn't reply. Yes, they act like jerks and often don't know how to talk. You are a child. They are children. I don't know to want to scold you for fighting but you just hurt Charlotte's feelings. Now, she is too worried about you. She is trying everything to make you happy and sometimes if she messes things, she gets anxious about it. So, even if you fight, don't make Charlotte suffer, alright? Brian was indeed worried about Charlotte. When Ely cried in front of Charlotte, he knew Charlotte blamed herself for this. And, that wouldn't make their relationship good. Ely bit her lips and nodded her head. Brian jumped down from the swing and opened his palm, stretching it in front of her. Ely held his hand and they finally returned to the mansion. At this moment, Charlotte was standing at the door with a worried expression in her eyes. She had already sent Wraith to his room. When she saw Ely, she rushed in front of her and lowered down. "I'm sorry, Ely. I didn't forget about my promise. I was just trying to get him away from you. I didn't realize." Just when she tried to explain, Ely rushed into her embrace and wrapped her hands around me. "Can you help me take off my clothes?" "Mom." For a moment, Charlotte couldn't react. She just stared at Brian with a blank expression. He shrugged his shoulders. He already knew that she was getting closer, and after meeting her future self, she was thinking about whether to really call her mom or not. So, after Brian pushed her to love Charlotte even more, she finally said the words she had been waiting to say after meeting her future self. At this moment, Charlotte didn't say anything. She just held Ely tightly in her embrace. This was the best day of her life. Chapter 78 Power System, Chaos Online. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Next day, yawn. Just how long did I sleep for? Brian woke up from the bed and muttered. He felt totally lazy to even step up. "Sir, you slept till 10 in the morning." Lily's voice rang in the room. "This is getting troublesome. I don't think I can hold on for a week. I should enter the game tomorrow." Brian sighed and slowly walked out of his bed. "But, sir, wouldn't this change the entire plan?" Lily asked. "When has my plan worked after that day?" "It doesn't matter much. I will try to finish the Flood Dragon dungeon as soon as I can and get my stamina back. I can always rest after that." Brian answered while walking out of the room. "Sir, then why wait till tomorrow?" Lily asked. Brian rolled his eyes as he entered the bathroom and said, "Isn't it obvious? I promised to tell her about the world. I am going to fulfill my promise before I enter the game." Lily didn't know what to say. Actually, Brian didn't want to play today. He wanted to spend time with Charlotte. After getting fresh, he walked out of the bathroom wearing a towel. He saw Charlotte in the kitchen and returns to his room. After wearing a loose black track and a black T-shirt, he walks toward the kitchen. 0. "What do we have today for lunch?" He moved behind her and wrapped his arm around her waist, while lazily leaning on her back. "I'm cooking, hubby." When she said that, she couldn't stop giggling. "So, are we going comfortable using the nicknames?" Brian smirked and stretched out his head near her cheeks. "Yep." Charlotte nodded her head as she turned the omelet on the pan. "Then, what should I call you?" "Wifey, dear, beloved, Char." How about I call you Dragon Lady?" When he said that, Charlotte turned around and glared at him. All right. All right. I will call you Wifey then." Brian snuggled her even more and said, "So, how does Wifey feel about being engaged?" "Don't tease me. You know how I feel about this." Charlotte rolled her eyes and turned around. She looked into his eyes and wrapped her arms around his neck. "So, what made you do all this?" "Oh. What? Can't I just do it because I want to?" Brian rolled his eyes and moved his lips on her. "But," she retreated her head and asked, "tell me." Brian sighed. "I am getting tired of this lack of stamina. I want to fix it, so I will return to playing New Gods from tomorrow for a while." "Well, I can't stop you, can I?" Although she said that, there was a hint of hesitation in her eyes. She really wanted to spend more time with him. At this moment, Brian got even closer to her and leaned on her shoulder, whispering, "Hey, don't worry. I won't let you be alone for long." When he said that, Charlotte's eyes widened. She suddenly separated herself from him and asked, "Did you finally?" "Not exactly that, but it works a bit like that. Anyway, it should be something that only I can use." But, it will take half a year to complete. Brian shook his head and explained. It doesn't matter. Half a year means nothing. Charlotte instantly bugged him tightly and snuggled on his chest. Seeing her this happy, Brian didn't know what to say. He took a deep breath and clenched his fist. All right. Let's eat something. Charlotte immediately left his embrace and started serving food. After they ate the food, both of them sat on the couch. He put his head on her lap and she fondled his hair. So, are you going to tell me about the universe today? Charlotte asked. Oh, yes, L.RG, all of it. Yep. Alright, then let's start with the power system of our universe. Charlotte excitedly cleared her hearing to listen carefully. Brian nodded his head and spoke. Then, let's start with the very beginning, which we call planetary power system. This is normally different on each planet. But the population of people in this system is more than all others combined. Excluding those under 9th ranks, there are 3 ranks that are the peak of planetary system and almost same among most planets. These 3 ranks are S. rank, King, and Emperor rank. We only have around 1,000 S. rank. As for King rank, around 50 and only 1 Emperor rank. Top 10 superheroes are on King rank and most of the heads of vampire and werewolf families are also on King rank, at least, most of them. As for the Emperor, well, you should have guessed it. She is the only Emperor and also someone infinitely close to reaching Omega rank. Of course, with her bloodline being awakened only twice, she can't reach Omega rank. Omega rank is under the star power system. This power system doesn't have many rankings. Omega rank, Galaxy Controller rank, and Celestial rank. Of course, these ranks are divided into 5 levels: low level, middle level, high level, and top level. Wraith's father is top level Galaxy Controller. In fact, if his bloodline makes a breath through, he will reach Celestial rank. Suddenly, Charlotte asked, but, how do we make our bloodline evolve? Is there a way to do so? Brian nodded his head and said, that's exactly why I developed new gods. Of course, it was also my selfishness. But, outside our planet, there is a massive virtual game running throughout the entire universe. I don't know who created this game, but the way they were able to manipulate the 0-point energy to evolve the bloodline is stunning. Even now, my theory is incomplete. You see, the entire virtual world of new gods is inside a chip. And, that chip is evolving due to the 0-point energy. In fact, I designed it to be just like the universal core which holds Chaos Online. The only difference between us is that Chaos Online can improve the bloodline, allowing people to harness the 0-point energy for evolution. In short, it is because of your bloodline that you were able to absorb the 0-point energy. My new device is also based on that, but it is different. Anyway, I want to get stronger and reach Omega rank so that I can apply to represent Earth inside the Chaos Online. Only one person from one planet can enter the Chaos Online, and as he earns points, he can use those points to evolve the bloodline of any creatures living on his planets. That's my plan anyway. So, if I manage to help humans awaken the bloodline once, everyone can start training with 0-point energy. That's the end goal of New Gods. So, let me get this straight. You designed a game that is now played by billions of people just so that you can enter another game that you didn't develop. Charlotte speechlessly stared at him. Come on. Don't give me that look. How else was I supposed to build a chip that can sustain the entire virtual world inside it? Anyway, if my new device has proven to work and if nothing goes wrong, it would change everything. So, what else do you want to know? Hearing his question, Charlotte thought for a while and asked, how about you tell me about hierarchy in the universe? Is there a hierarchy in the universe? Brian nodded his head and said, yes, there is. In fact, the vampires that have come to our world were banished from Nightblood Planet. I am not sure about the history and why they were banished. What about werewolves? Do you know why they came here? My parents simply grabbed me and came here without telling me the reason. They never told me the reason behind it. Charlotte asked with a sad expression. Brian nodded his head and said, yes, I do know about the werewolf's reason for coming here. You were only 5 when you came here, so you might not know this, but werewolf and vampires are in a constant battle for the moons of Nightblood Planet. You see, Nightblood Planet has one of the biggest moons in the entire Milky Way galaxy. Vampires and werewolves don't have that many things in common except for one, and it is the moon. Blood moon and full moon. If it is a blood moon, then the vampires will get stronger than ever. If it is a full moon, then the werewolves will get stronger than ever. But, a single moon can't have two different kinds of the environment at the same time. If you want to make a blood moon, you need to sacrifice nearly the civilizations of 10 planets to fill that moon with the river of blood. But, if you do that, the moon will lose all of its effect that normally transpires to transform or even get stronger in both strength and talent. So, they are in constant war against each other. The moment a certain part of the vampires were banished from the Nightblood Planet, your race sent some of the werewolves to monitor them. That is why werewolves cooperate with humans even before vampires did. And why the vampires and werewolves didn't cooperate to exterminate humans. Chapter 79 UMA Discussion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, we are just some soldiers sent by our race, even including children like me. Charlotte's eyes widened. She finally understood why her parents never told her the reason why they came here. She was only told that they and vampires were enemies and humans were beneath them. That's all they knew. Brian raised his head from her lap and pulled her head into his chest. The past is the past. It doesn't matter what reason you were sent here for. It led us to know each other and finally get together. I feel like this is a blessing in disguise. Charlotte wrapped her hands around him and said. Maybe you are right. After that, they stayed like that for a while until Brian returned back to his lab once again. Inside UMA, so, is it true that our world has already been spotted by Omega rank people? A middle-aged man sitting around the round table spoke. He had furry ears and a large body. He was holding his chin in his hands. It is true. And it is not just the Omega rank but a person above Omega rank. We have been threatened to take care of certain personnel until a certain period of time. The director spoke with a serious expression on his face. He was sitting on one side of the table. This table was fairly long. 2 narrow sides were occupied by 2 humans while 2 wide sides were occupied by other races. So, who this personnel is? Is it possible to know? Opposite the middle-aged man from the werewolf race, one of the vampires spoke. He was a slender young-looking man, but his face couldn't decide his age. Because he was one of King rank, 0. The director shook his head and said, I'm afraid that is not possible. The security of the world is at stake, and this person has specifically asked me not to spread anything about this event. It is best if we can go on without even thinking about him. But, director, wouldn't it be unfair that only the human race knows about this? Another man from the werewolf side spoke. The director looked at him and spoke, I understand what you are implying, but the information that we received is from a human, and that human doesn't want to spread this information to anyone he doesn't want to. We have to respect his choice, especially when he even bothered to tell us about this. The werewolf's eyes flinched, but he didn't say anything. Instead, the middle-aged man next to him spoke. Alright, now let's talk about the main topic for which we were invited for. After all, that should be our first priority, isn't that right, Miss Lucy? He was staring at the lady sitting opposite to him. The person who normally doesn't care about these meetings suddenly bothered to call a meeting, which surprised them. Of course, if it wasn't here, he wouldn't be here. Leakin. The strongest werewolf on Earth. He wouldn't listen to anyone except for this lady. Lucy looked at the middle-aged man and took out a small projector. She placed the projector on the table and said, "We have come to the decision about the person who will represent us in the chaos online." At this moment, the projector presents a picture of a young man with black hair and black eyes. He was none other than Brian Jackson. Oh. When the director saw this picture, his eyes widened for a moment. Gabriel, who was standing behind him as his protector during this mission, also looked at the picture with wide eyes. But there was another person next to the director who was looking at the picture a bit confused. He was Barry. His name is Brian Jackson. He has been chosen as the representative of the Earth for the Chaos Online. When the director heard this word, his eyebrows twitched a little. He has heard of this word before. But, it's just that he didn't get to know what exactly is this. Bam! Suddenly, the middle-aged man slammed his fist on the table and broke a part of it. On what basis does this human get such opportunity? When he spoke, his aura leaked out and started suffocating the directors and Barry, but thanks to Gabriel, they didn't suffer for long. "Mr. Leakin, this isn't your home." Gabriel stared at the werewolf and spoke with an intense killing intent coming out of his eyes. At this moment, Barry, who was next to him, was coughing out blood. He knows Barry. As one of the most important members who is currently handling New Gods, Barry is quite popular. And he was given a chance to watch this meeting because of his popularity. But he didn't expect to suffer like this. The werewolf also noticed his situation and called back his aura. He couldn't help but frown. "Why are you letting weak humans attend the meeting in the first place?" "Mr. Leakin, I am not sure about your academic situation, but during the meeting, we quarrel with words, not with powers." The director stared at him and spoke. At this moment, he was very angry. Barry's life was almost threatened because of this man's aura. He turned around and said, "Call Selen back to heal him." Gabriel nodded his head and immediately called Selen. "If everything is fine, then let's make something clear. Brian Jackson will be the representative of the Earth in Chaos Online, and that's final." Lucy spoke, which made the room silent for a while. "Miss Lucy, if it is you, then we can accept this because of your strength, but we can't accept a human. Although you are strong, you don't have the right to make this decision." Leakin shook his head and answered. "But, I do, right?" Suddenly, a voice rang as a person appeared above the table. This person was wearing a gray robe that covered her head, but her old face was still visible. Why, you are the great prophet. What are you doing here?" Leakin suddenly panicked when he saw this old lady. He even stood up from his chair. The lady shook her head and said, "I am here just following my princess. But, the decision about the representative of the Earth in Chaos Online has been made. He is the chosen one. It will take him to reach that level, but we can wait. Your people have already suffered enough. Don't you want to get revenge? Don't you want to return to your family?" When Leakin heard that, his eyes trembled. He clenched his fist and lowered his head. "Can we trust this human, great prophet?" The werewolf next to Leakin asked cautiously. In fact, he has only heard rumors about the great prophet. He didn't expect to see one here. The old lady nodded her head and said, "We can trust the chosen one. He is after all a father of princess's daughter." Oh, hearing her words, half of the people in the room opened their mouths in shock while others remained silent. So, the rumors about Miss Lucy having a child was correct. Leakin strangely stared at Lucy. "You got a problem with that?" Lucy stared back and coldly responded. "No. No." Leakin shook his head and thought, this Brian is really one hell of an unlucky guy. Just who in the world can tame this mad girl? But, suddenly, he thought about something and looked at the great prophet and asked, "So, you already predicted about him and forged a relationship to draw this human to your side?" The old lady shook her head and said, "Although that was the plan, it didn't go well. Now, he probably hates vampires and is currently staying with a werewolf." "Werewolf?" Leakin stared at her with confusion. Her name should be Charlotte. Suddenly, the old lady's eyes turned solemn as she said the next word, Jackson. At this moment, the entire room froze. The bone-chilling killing intent burst out of Lucy, but the great prophet snapped her finger and the entire pressure disappeared. Anyway, he will be the representative of Earth. It shouldn't be a problem for you, right? Saying so, she looked at the director. The director, who had just recovered from that killing intent, shook his head. The next moment, the old lady disappeared alongside Lucy. Creak. At the same time, the door opened and a beautiful blonde girl walked in. Director, you called me. The blonde girl asked, but her eyes instantly fell on Barry and she rushed to him. Since we have discussed the main topic, I am leaving. Leakin spoke to the director and disappeared. Soon, others disappeared as well. They had already left the building. Weird. The blonde girl spoke while healing Barry. What? The director turned back and asked. Something is blocking me from healing his brain. Well, his brain isn't hurt, so it wouldn't matter anyway. The blonde continued while shrugging off her shoulders. The director and Gabriel looked at Barry but didn't continue talking about it. At this moment, none of them noticed a small tentacle bot connected to the wall outside the building. It was slowly crumbling into dust, only showing a few words on its chest display. Mission accomplished. Chapter 80 Flood Dragon Dungeon Part 1. You're listening at novelfull.audio. In the center of Dragonfly City, small blue particles combined intersected with each other and slowly formed a figure. He stroked his head and muttered. It's good to be back. Status. Name. Dragon Rider 97 Race. Human level. 17 HP, 180/180, Dragon Ring 2X, Cursed. 55% Stamina, MP 180/180, Dragon Ring 2X, XP. 220/327680 Class. Warlock STR 120, plus 180/AGI. 90, plus 90/VIT. 90 STM. 90/int. 90/magic. 100, Warlock, active abilities, Warlock. Cursed Hands, LV.2, Hellflame, LV.1, active abilities, Bookworm. Creation, LV.1, Summon, LV.1, passive abilities, Warlock. Mental Fortitude, LV.1, Dark Blessing, LV.1, passive abilities, Bookworm. Enhanced Memory, LV.1, Speed Reading, LV.1, O. Skills. Dragon Rider 97 Sword Art, LV.5, Shadow Escape, LV.5, Slaughtering Crows, LV.5, Thunderbolt, LV.5, SP, 40, 0. God's Coin. 1087 Inventory. Boar Bones, 2 Picks, Swords, 2, Healing Potions, 8, my status is fine except for stamina, and for that to be fine, I have to finish the Flood Dragon Dungeon. I have already changed my plan once again, now I don't want to change it more. First, let's buy some potions and head towards the Flood Dragon Dungeon. Although it is possible to take the team for this dungeon, he doesn't want to share this specific dungeon reward with anyone else except maybe Tempest. But, for him, he had already planned to give him the finished product. Brian rushed toward the Eden store and buys 5 power potions, 5 haste potions, 10 healing potions, 20 mana restoration potions, and 5 super curse potions. Flood Dragon is weak against curses. And, being a master of curses, he could use it. But, the problem is with his weakness. Right now, the curse is not his strength but rather a weakness. If it was before, he wouldn't need to purchase these potions, but now, he had no other choices. He had to keep his stamina on that level for now, or else, he might even get too weak to fight against Flood Dragon. It cost him a total of 1,000 God's coins. Thankfully, he didn't return the swords to George. but just for safety, he bought another sword costing him 50 gods coins. After buying everything he needed, he rushed out of the city. His goal was on the far west of the forest. Flood Dragon Dungeon was fairly hidden from most people. So, even Adventurer Guild didn't know about this. Of course, just to be safe, he did make a mechanism to give out the same reward no matter how many times it is cleared. He had made a perfect opportunity for himself. He didn't want to lose it. After 1 hour, he finally came in front of bushes and small trees. He crossed the bushes and reached into the empty ground. It was completely grassland, but underneath this grassland lies one of the cheats that he prepared. He looked around until he eventually found the correct position. His foot pressed that point and his body suddenly fell underground. After falling for a moment, his body slowly floated with the wind and landed slowly on the ground. A big smirk appeared on his lips. He looked at the towering pillars in front of him. It was a giant hall with dozens of golden pillars supporting it. Oh. Ding. You have discovered Flood Dragon Dungeon. You are standing at the first stage of Flood Dragon Dungeon. Quest generated, Quest 1. Kill 10 ninjas reward. 50,000 EXP, and 500 gods coins punishment. Death, nice. It's time to speedrun this stage. Saying so, he took out a bottle of haste potion and drank it. Your AGI stat has reached 250, temporary, time limit. 2 minutes, with the help of Dragon Ring, his agility was already 180, but thanks to the potion, it rose to 250, which makes it really scary comparing it to his level. Whoosh! 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 On the pillars, nearly 10 dark-clothes ninjas appeared. They were sticking to the pillar while observing him. Whoosh! But suddenly, his figure disappeared. Brian appeared closer to the first ninja and slashed his sword. Clack! But, his sword didn't pierce him but rather a wooden block. Substitution ninja art. Curse you, firewall. If it wasn't for the firewall, he wouldn't have to do this at all. He could have removed all the weaknesses of Warlock except maybe Light. But, the firewall wasn't controlled by humans. It was controlled by UMA, which represents 3 different races. And, even if he does hack and sneak these functions, they will eventually come to find out. After all, even vampires and werewolves will join this game after a year. Brian took a deep breath and his eyes spotted another ninja. The dark mana coated his sword as he rushed toward the ninja. The ninja instantly took out a few shurikens and threw them at him. Ding! 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 Brian swung his sword and blocked those shurikens, but suddenly, one of the shurikens suddenly transformed into a ninja. He was just next to Brian. He opened his mouth and a stream of fire came out of his mouth. Thunderbolt, bang! While Brian decided to bear the power of the flames, he also launched the bolt of lightning from his hand without wasting a single second. The bolt of lightning struck the ninja and killed him. Thud! Brian landed on the ground, full of burns. He didn't take the healing potion though. This attack only took 20 HP. At the current level, a single healing potion can still recover his health completely. So, he didn't want to waste it now. Suddenly, another bunch of shurikens rushed forward. This time he didn't take the chance and dodged them. Dark mana reached out to his foot and the next moment, his figure disappeared. Splash! He appeared behind the ninja who just transformed back from shuriken. His sword stabbed the ninja from the back. After killing this ninja, he didn't lose his focus and continued to find others. Those ninjas were staying on the pillars, and since there were dozens of them, it was really hard to find them. Brian though knew where they would normally be. Among dozens of pillars, only a few specific pillars were chosen to be their observation area. Although they could have evolved, they wouldn't just change their behavior, right? 3 at the middle. Brian immediately rushed toward the pillars in the middle and specifically chose 3 pillars. He put his sword back and conjured lightning mana into his hands. Thunderbolt, thunderbolt, just when he thought of rushing after the next one, the effect of haste potion vanished. He didn't hesitate to take out another potion and drank it. Your AGI stat has reached 250, temporary, time limit. 2 minutes, but, during this time, the ninja had already vanished from that pillar. And, his thunderbolt also startled other ninjas. Call. Suddenly, a bird made out of flames rushed toward him from the back. He immediately reacted and a sword appeared in his hand. Coating his sword with dark mana, he slashed the firebird in half. But, suddenly, noticed 2 small talismans attached to his sword. Damn! He got no choice but to throw away his sword. Boom! Boom! Those were explosion talismans, one of the powerful tools that belong to ninjas. They are working in a group or at least in a pair. They surely have evolved. Thankfully, I have something else as well. Brian took out 2 boar bones. These were his first swords. He took a deep breath and calmed down. Instead of searching for them individually, he decided to attack the group. Thankfully, this time I designed them at the lab rather than thinking about them in here. Brian suddenly took a stance where one of his hands was up and another hand was at the bottom. He spun his hand but slowly, and the dark mana started materializing a giant figure behind him. It had a long body with a head like a deer. It had 5 claws and a mustache of catfish. Its claws were sharp like eagles and the scales were just like fish but bigger. Dragon. He finally managed to form a dragon. In his previous attack, he was able to form an Azura which gave him the idea to create the dragon and he finally did it. Dragon Rider 97 Sword Art, 5th Stance. Dark Dragon Emperor, Roar. The dragon roared from behind and swung its body. The long body moved like a hurricane, covering his body inside. The 5 claws came out of the hurricane and started piercing everything around him. Bang! 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 In less than a minute, the entire room was down to nothingness. At the same time, dozens of notifications appeared in front of him. You killed LV.20 ninja, *10, you received 20,000 EXP, you completed the quest, you received 50,000 EXP, you received 500 gods coins. After the giant phantom of the dragon disappeared, the entire collapsed room appeared in his vision. But, he was more focused on the panels shown by the system. Nice. I might be able to level up before facing that dragon.